Hey everybody, Pythagoras Penn is with us again today, and we are day 3 here on the distance learning. Thought I needed to get out some pony gear here for you guys, just to make sure I was kind of representing. But want to do a couple things with you guys today. One big thing, I want to teach you guys a little bit about how each graph starts and ends, or how each graph goes through one complete cycle, because they repeat forever. So we have two trig graphs that we're going to look at here in this unit. First graph is sine and then cosine. And the second thing I want to do is talk to you about how to create an equation from a trig graph. So if you take a peek up here, I have two trig graphs. I have our sine trig graph and our cosine trig graph. And now these go on forever, so it's hard to say where does it start and stop. So we choose an arbitrary point. We say that sine starts right on the midline, and it goes to a high value, back through the midline to a low value, and ends right on the midline here. One way for us to look at that is this analogy, so, ho, low. And it goes like this: sine, S, origin, as in the midline, high, H, origin, O, low, or L, as in for low, and then back to origin, so ho, low. Now cosine looks the same, it just looks like it's shifted over. So to identify cosine, we say it starts at high and ends at high. And so it goes high, goes through the midline to a low point, back through the midline to a high point. So we have these two acronyms, so, ho, low, and cho, low. So we're going to use those two to write some equations for some trig graphs. And I have broken this down into a few steps. So there are 3 steps for doing this. The first one here is to find the midline. That's right here. We're going to then find the amplitude, and the third one is going to find the frequency. So if we look up here in our equation here, we have 3 spots to put these pieces. First step is to find the midline, that goes here. Second step is to find the amplitude. We talked about that the last 2 lessons, the distance above or below. Well, the distance from the midline to the max, that's the amplitude. And the last one then is the frequency. That might be a little bit tricky for us, but we're going to just use this formula. The frequency is 2 pi divided by the period. So we identify the period from a high, midline to a low, back to a high if it's cosine. And then we divide it, and we'll find then that frequency. That number goes right here. So we'll demonstrate this. This graph right here, we're looking for this dotted line. This black line is a y equals cosine x curve that doesn't have any numbers in front of any of these boxes. So to identify this, first step is to find the midline. We talked about that. So you find your low point, find your high point, and then we're going to go halfway there. That's a distance of 4 units. That makes this midline right here at y equals 2. So that number goes in the box here. Y equals 2, so it's just plus 2. If it was negative, it'd be down here. Second step is find the amplitude. That's the distance from the midline to this high values. And that's a difference of 2 units, or a distance of 2. That goes here. And then the last is your frequency. So we're going to identify the period, and then we'll do this formula, 2 pi divided by the period. So to find the period, we look at the curve, and since it's cosine, we look at this acronym here, cho, ho, low. So it starts high. Cosine always starts high, goes through the midline to a low point, back through the midline before it repeats itself. And so it ends on high. So here is, we talked about how to find the period. To find that then, we're going to go down here. We're going to find that distance. Looks like Penny's already checked out a little bit here. Stay with us here, Penn. Pythagoras Penn. That makes the period 2 pi. So if I follow this formula, I take 2 pi divided by 2 pi. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. Pi divided by pi is 1. That makes the frequency 1. Now, I can choose to either put a number here or not. I'm going to put a number in here, and we're done. That's the equation, then, of this dotted trig function. What we'll do here, you guys, we'll do one more. I'll do one that's a sine curve. but the steps don't change. So first step is to find the midline of this curve. So here's a high point, here's a low point. So that's a distance of -4 from 0 to -4. That makes the midline right here at -2. So we'll put that in here. So -2. And then we'll check the amplitude. That's the distance from midline to the high point. That's 2. Amplitude is never negative, by the way. We will talk about sometimes we put a negative here, but it has nothing to do with the amplitude. And then the frequency. So the frequency, this is the sine curve. So we're going to use this so holo, which means basically the sine curve starts here, right at the midline, goes to a high, through the midline to a low, and then ends back at the midline before it repeats itself. So I'm just doing that to identify the period from our previous video. In this case, the period is 2 pi. We did this one already. 2 pi divided by 2 pi is uno. That uno goes here. So big ideas today are identifying. Oh, Penny, I think you needed a treat. That was a lot there. So Penny, big ideas today is we're identifying our highs and lows to decide whether it's a sine or cosine curve. Once we decide that, we're going to create an equation with these 3 steps. Find the midline, find the amplitude, and then number 3, find the frequency. We'll put those numbers in these places here, and voila, we're good to go. So I want you guys to practice that a little bit today, and I think that should do it. Yeah, until next time, stay clean, my friends. Wash your hands, disinfect your phones, and be kind.